Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Recaps and Reacts with me, Sarah, where I talk about movies and shows that I enjoy. I mostly talk about my reactions. Thank you for anyone who is returning to my videos, and thank you for new people who have come out and checked out my videos. It's really nice of you to spend time with me. So I really appreciate it. And, like the video, comment. Let's have a discussion in the chat. Also, please subscribe. Would love to have you. Where we can just all nerd out on shows, TV, entertainment all together. So anyway, let's get into episode 3 of Rooster, which is titled White Whale. So just want to say before I start the recap, fun fact with this episode, Zach Braff directed it. So if you don't know who Zach Braff is, he is on another Bill Lawrence show, Scrubs. The revival or reboot is out now, which I'm also covering on the channel. So please check out those videos. But Zach Braff has directed this episode, and also Zach Braff plays the main character on Scrubs, JD. But anywho, please check out my recaps on Scrubs too, if that's a show that you enjoy. It's fantastic. It is hilarious. I love the reboot and I geek out on it on my other recap videos. But anyway, the show opens with Katie and Greg checking out the house that the school has given to him. Greg wants Katie to move in with him. Of course, she's like, nah, I'm good. She's going through this thing with her husband, Archie. So she's like, no. But she does also tell him that, it's taken her a while to get out of her mother's shadow, which is Greg's ex-wife. We have not been introduced to her yet. I think she's coming in later on in the season. But she is Katie's mom. Greg's ex-wife is that girl. And so Katie was saying that it has taken her a while to get out of her mother's shadow. And now that her father is coming to teach a course there, he's a famous author, she's just like, I want to create my own path. Can you kind of fall back a little bit? And he agrees. So the next day, or the next scene, we see Dylan walking with Greg. They come out of the same house they come out of their house at the same time. Greg is now Dylan's neighbor. So Greg asks if he can walk with her to the campus, and they walk together. Greg is also wearing new shiny shoes. That is an important detail it is an important detail for later, so just remember that. The next scene, we go to Sunny, who's Archie's, I guess, girlfriend right now. The lady he had an affair with and has gotten pregnant. Remember, Archie is living with Sunny right now and her roommate, which I believe her name is Mo. I don't know who this actress's name is, but she is so funny. She was on an episode or two. I didn't finish the last season of Hacks, but she was in an episode in Hacks too, and she was hilarious. So she's pretty funny in this episode as well. But Mo and Sunny are talking, and she's very stressed out about trying to find a summer internship because she's pregnant, but she's not really showing right now. And she knows she's afraid that employers won't really want to work with her when she's actually visibly pregnant, obviously, because she's going to have to take time off afterwards. So she's stressed out about trying to find an internship. So while they're arguing or, discussing that, Archie in the background is like, hey guys, hey, tap, hey, can y'all kind of just keep it down? Because I'm working on my book over here on this laptop. And Mo's like, I am so sorry for talking in my own apartment, sarcastically, of course. And then Sunny apologizes to Archie, and she says they'll keep it down. So then Sunny tells Mo that she wants Walt, President Walt, to be her mentor. And then Archie's like, yeah, no, because Walt is a big gossip. Trust me, you don't want him to be your mentor. And, everyone's already talking about us already, so no. So I also want to mention in this part too that I didn't talk about it in the last recap, but Katie kind of mentioned, I believe it was Katie mentioned how Archie's a narcissist, and this scene definitely touches on that because Archie's in his own world. He's staying in Sunny's apartment because he got kicked out, or Katie burnt down his house. Obviously he can't stay with her because he cheated on her. And so he's in Sunny's apartment telling him, Sunny and her roommate, to quiet down because he's working on his book. Not really even considering the fact that she's stressed out about this internship when he mentions that. So definitely some narcissistic traits are being shown here. But, Phil Dunster does a good job playing this role. So, yes, but it is funny. And this scene was also funny too because there was at one point where when Archie is talking to Sunny, Mo is like they don't get along. Mo and Archie do not get along. You can tell Mo cannot stand him, and Mo's kind of like making fun of him a little bit. And when he's talking to Sunny, he puts his hands up like this to kind of take Mo out of the frame so he can't see her when he's talking to Sunny. And it is so funny because it's so immature and so childlike, but it's hilarious because he's a grown man, but it's funny. Also, Sunny agrees that she will not ask President Walt to be Walt, or will not ask Walt to be her mentor, and Archie thanks her. So, next scene, we see Greg and Dylan speaking to Walt in his office. We find out that Walt actually hired Greg in place of Dylan's friend. So that's why Greg is living next to Dylan. Her friend was supposed to live there, which was referenced in the first episode, but Walt ended up hiring Greg. And Dylan is like kind of annoyed by that or upset by it. And Walt's like, listen, this is a once in a lifetime situation where I could have hired Greg. She can come next semester. And then Dylan says, my friend won the Bailey Gifford Prize. And Walt says, we all have our resumes, which I thought was so funny. Greg also tells Dylan that I took the job because Katie wouldn't be able to get her job back if I didn't take it. And he's like, please just keep that between us because Katie doesn't know. Dylan tells Greg to watch his back because Walt would just stab you in it, and she's referring to how the Ludlow review was cut. Dylan tells Walt that you just tossed the Ludlow review aside like it was nothing, and you need to handle your job with some grace and sensitivity. And this will be important for later, so just remember that moment. Walt says that he is drawn to Greg and he wanted to hire Greg because Greg is not asking him for anything. So remember, I believe it was last episode. Yeah, last episode. Walt was saying how everybody just wants something from him constantly and Greg doesn't because Greg just got there. So, I mean, there's really nothing to ask for. But I guess technically, honestly, when I think about it, he kind of did ask Walt for something. He asked Walt for Katie to have her job back, and Walt essentially had to blackmail him into doing that. So, I mean, I guess he did technically. Maybe he's just not asking all the time, but he technically did ask for something and wanted something from Walt. So now that Greg has his position as a professor, I guess just for the semester, Walt shows him to his office, and would you wouldn't believe it, Walt made Greg's office right next to Walt's, and it like connects, and it only locks on Walt's side, does not lock on Greg's side. So yeah. So he now has, as my friend says, unfettered access to Greg. So Sunny and her roommate are at the gym. Sunny and Mo are at the gym. Sunny sees Dean Riggs, and she asks Dean Riggs to be her advisor. And he said he cannot, and he can't explain further because his lawyer has asked him not to, which I'm sure we can deduce what that means. Walt overhears the conversation, and he tells Sunny to he says, young lady, I advise you, like, get an advisor who you have a good connection with, someone who can do something for you. Food for thought. Sunny's walking with Archie, and Sunny was telling Archie about the conversation that she had with Walt, and she says she should have just asked him to be her advisor. And since they were already having a conversation, and Archie was like, no, Walt was just inserting himself. He was eavesdropping. And this moment, I don't understand why Archie has a problem with Walt. I don't know if I missed anything. If y'all know, let me know in the chat, in the comments. But I don't think we know why Archie has a problem with Walt, but I'm pretty sure that'll play out later in the season if it hasn't already been revealed. So we cut to Greg going to his first class, and He's walking up, I think it's called Stonewall Hill. And remember how I mentioned he has new shoes? So he slipped down this hill. I'm trying to go up because he saw a bunch of students going through, and he was like, "Oh, great! I'll just take this shortcut." But yeah, he slips and falls. So needless to say, when he gets to his next class or his first class, he's looking rough. So when Greg gets to class, he's going over his syllabus, and Ronnie was from the first episode. She raises her hand and she's like, I'm not sure any of these authors are going to speak to me. And Greg says, "Just you wait, Ronnie. You'll be my white whale." So then after he says that, we immediately cut to the next scene where he is sitting in front of the disciplinary board. Greg is getting in trouble for calling Ronnie a white whale, and they think it could be deemed as body shaming. And of course, of course, Greg did not mean that. He was referring to Moby Dick. Archie tries to stick up for Greg in this moment, but it was a bunch of word salad. And then Greg just tells Archie he hates him, obviously, for what he's done to Katie. And the dean of students says, I'm good with just a verbal warning. All right. And then we also find out that maybe Walt's assistant, I forgot her name, has a crush on Greg. Mm. And then Dean asked Greg to walk with him and they have a conversation. Or Dean Riggs asked Greg to walk with him and they have a conversation. Students are having a protest outside of Dylan's office. And Dylan goes to the student and she's like, "Yo, what's going on? Protesting is supposed to be on another part of campus." And the student says, "Yeah, but someone moved it over here." And Dylan has this look on her face and she knows exactly who it is. And so we immediately cut to the next scene, which is Dean Riggs' office. Dylan is going to go talk to Dean Riggs because he's the one that moved the protest over there. Dean Riggs admits to moving the protest over there by Dylan's office because he found out that she told on him to Walt about the Ludlow review, and that was his retaliation. He then starts having this horrible cough, and he's like asking Dylan for water, and she's like, "No." She's like, "Are you this petty?" And she's just going off on him and all this other stuff. And then literally there is something wrong with this man. He starts coughing and choking, and then he slides out of his chair. And Archie is outside eavesdropping. Dean Riggs ends up passing out. Dylan busts out of Dean Riggs' office and she sees Archie and she says, "Call 911." And she's going down the hall, I guess probably to talk to his assistant to do something. But while she's running to whomever to get help, we're now on Archie and he's trying to call 911 and he's like, "Why do bad things keep happening to me?" And he's calling 911. Again, Archie being a narcissist or showing narcissistic traits. Next scene, Dylan is in Walt's office and Walt hangs up the phone and he says it was a heart attack. And Dylan was like, "Did they say that water could have started that?" And Walt's like, "What?" And she's like, "Never mind." Walt's assistant comes in and she says she's taking care of all his classes, but they need a dean for that. They need a dean for that department. So Walt says, "Congratulations, Dylan. You'll be the dean." And she's like, "No, I can't do that." And he says, "Yes, you can, because that water question was really suspect. And also, you can also handle your job with grace and sensitivity. See if you can handle it." And so here we go. That's why I mentioned this earlier, where Dylan had told Walt he should handle his job with grace and sensitivity. So Walt has now made Dylan interim dean for her department, which I think is literature. I'm not 100% sure, English or literature. And this way she can possibly try to handle or see what he's going through as to why he has to make hard decisions. And so Dylan's like, "I see what you're doing here." But she ends up accepting the job. Katie goes by Dylan's office to ask to have her suspension lifted because she's going crazy at home. And before this scene, she did go to one of Archie's classes, just was standing outside the door and seeing how he was, and Archie looked like he was in a great mood or whatever. And so she tells Dylan Why isn't he struggling like I am? He's looking so happy and bouncy, and obviously she's not. And after she says that, we cut to the next scene where it shows Archie on his laptop after his class was over. He's, in on at one of the tables in his class or in his seat in his class, and he's looking at old pictures of him and Katie, and he's crying. So clearly Archie is not happy, and he's also falling apart as well. But Sunny comes in at that moment. So Sunny stops by Archie's classroom, and she sees him crying, and she's like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm just looking at some other pictures of my dog or whatever." I think something like that. And she gives a list to Archie of a list of advisors, potential advisors she can have, because I didn't really touch on it, but Archie did end up convincing Dean Riggs to be Sunny's advisor. But obviously, he has a heart attack, so he can't be her advisor now. So she had a whole list of um, potential professors that could be her advisor, or faculty that could be her advisor by certain ailments. Archie's like, "What's the rush? Like, it's only October. Why are you trying to find somebody now?" And she's like, "Because I am pregnant, and nobody's going to want someone who's 8 months pregnant walking around their laboratory." And also, this moment too, Sunny is mean to Archie at times. I don't get it. I don't know if they're trying to show a maturity level, but she's a grad student, but she's kind of not nice to Archie at times. I don't know what it is, but she's very mean to him. So they have like an odd relationship. And honestly, I'm not sure if they're together. I guess they are together, but sometimes they don't act like it. So I don't know, but it's weird. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's part of the comedy of this relationship and this whole situation, but it's a little weird to me, so I don't get it. So next scene, we have Greg in his class. He's trying to just talk to the students. They're just shooting the breeze. And he's trying to have some vulnerable moments with his students so that he can or they can open up to him. So he mentions how he was nervous to teach and how he never took any writing courses. Students are still not taking the bait to open up. Greg then talks about his Rooster books. And I think his name is Eric. That really like piques Eric's interest because he's really into those books. He says his character Rooster does everything that he wishes he could have done or he could do. He says he writes because he wishes that he was someone else. Then students start to open up more. There was a particular student who was talking, and he's walking around his classroom, and remember how I mentioned the new shoes that Greg has? He's slipping and sliding, and he ends up slipping on a female student, and his hands like land on her chest, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Needless to say, he ends up back with the disciplinary board, but Dylan is head of it because she is the new interim dean right now. They mention in the disciplinary board meeting that the student knew it was an accident, and Dylan says, "Just don't do it again," and then she leaves. Next scene, Archie talks to Walt with Sunny about being Sunny's advisor, and Archie was successful, so now Walt will be Sunny's advisor. The closing scene, we have Greg at a hockey game. Katie was supposed to meet him there, but Katie actually found some friends, so she's hanging out with them. He's bummed by that, but Dylan ends up coming because apparently the hockey coach, who is drunk while they're having this hockey game, she has to address him. Dylan tells Greg to get it together because she doesn't want to have to police him. So she's like, "Please get it together." Greg said he's trying to, but nothing is making sense. His daughter doesn't like him. Walt's assistant is creeping him out. And Dylan says she doesn't have time for this. Greg says it's because you're busy, and I envy that. Like, I wish I were as busy as you. He says that people say that college is the best time of your life, but it's not. And Dylan says, you sound like a college freshman, but you're not. You're 60, so you can leave anytime you want to. And then Greg says, I'm actually 57, and you're mean. And then he just gets up and leaves, and Dylan kind of has a shocked look on her face. And then you can see maybe Dylan can't handle this job with grace and sensitivity. And that's how the episode ends. So that was the third episode of Rooster, which was a good episode. I'm really enjoying Rooster. I like these characters. It's funny. I like the cinematography, the photography of it, the lighting. I like the campus. I wonder where it's set. I need to look that up, but I do like it. But yeah, funny show. Great episode. So yeah, I will be back to talk about episode 4 soon. I think I just watched it last night, so I just need to do the recap for it or make my notes for it, and then I'll film it. And then some other short shows that I'm covering. I am covering Scrubs, Bridgerton. Bridgerton's gonna take me a minute to finish because I did the first half and I gotta do the second half, and Bridgerton is a beast to cover because it's like a movie each episode. But I will get it done. But I'm also doing, like I said, Scrubs, which is another Bill Lawrence show. So if you enjoy Rooster, you will definitely enjoy Scrubs. I think I'm doing Big Mood soon. Big Mood's coming out next week, so I will be covering that too as well. So thank you so much for stopping by. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, all those fun things. Thank you again. Like I said, I appreciate you so much that you have decided to spend your time with me and talk about this show or hear me talk about this show. So I will see you next time. So